All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you everyone for joining. You're here for today's demonstration of the Geonexus Integration Platform, keeping your data in sync while transitioning from Esri's geometric network to the utility network. My name is Katie Majewski, and I'm a marketing coordinator here at Geonexus, and I'm happy to be joined by Josh Swenson, the VP of Revenue Operations, who I brought on to help answer some of the questions you may be having after the end of the demonstration. The focus today is going to be on a recorded demonstration featuring Umesh, our VP of Strategic Product Management, who will guide you through two different demo scenarios today. The first use case highlights the synchronization of data from the geometric network, the GN, into the utility network, the UN. And then the second use case highlights making an update in the UN and observing the reflected changes back in the GN. This demonstration will focus solely on the data flow during the synchronization. However, if you're interested in learning more about configuration within GIP, please visit our demo page on the website or let us know within the survey after the demonstration that you're interested in learning more about configuration. One quick housekeeping note before we get started is if you have any questions throughout the demonstration, please feel free to type them into the Q&A panel on the right-hand side of your user interface. We've carved a bit of time at the end to address any questions that come through, but if for some reason we don't get to everyone's questions during the live event today, we'll be certain to follow up with you directly afterward. Before we dive into the demonstration, I'm going to set a quick foundation of who we are for those of you who might not be familiar with Geonexus. Geonexus is a software company, and our product, the Geonexus Integration Platform, also known as GIP, redefines the custom code approach to integration by providing users with a fully supported, easy-to-use, proven platform for system integration. This simplifies the configuration, management, and overall maintenance of many integrations across the enterprise, all with little to no code required. Many organizations we engage with today are planning for or have already begun their transition to the utility network. As an Esri partner with network management specialty, we have been actively involved in various UN projects over the last few years. A common concern we hear people say in our conversations is the complexity of system integrations and the reliance on custom code integrations with legacy systems. As many of you know, the transition from the GN to the UN is not a quick flip of the switch. It's an extensive process lasting an average of 2 to 3 years. And many organizations we've worked with have adopted an incremental approach to synchronization by prioritizing critical data for transition first. This iterative process is crucial for maintaining alignment between the two systems throughout the transition period. On the slide, we have a graphic outlining the typical phases of a UN project. Geonexus specializes in addressing the integration phase of a UN project. Typically, we're engaged towards the end of the design or migration phase to serve as a synchronization tool to ensure data continuity during the transition. So there's really three main components to the Geonexus Integration Platform. The first is simplified configuration. So within the platform, we provide an easy-to-navigate user interface with drop-down menu configuration to streamline setup, maintenance, and management of the integration throughout its entire lifetime. This allows additions or modifications to be made on the fly with little to no code required as well. The second is automated synchronization. So once your systems are connected and your configuration is complete, we help you automate your processes by allowing you to schedule your synchronization on a specified task. This can be done nightly, weekly, etc. And we can also synchronize your data bidirectionally as well if you'd like. The last is active reporting. So once you've configured your systems and you have your synchronization running on a schedule, we provide in-depth reports to show that everything has run as intended. Some of the benefits that GIP's reporting can provide are detailed descriptions of any errors, orphans, discrepancies, and more that may have occurred. How we simplify integration even further is through our library of connectors you can see on the screen below. Each one of these connectors understands the unique business logic of each system and are constantly upgraded to allow you to take advantage of the latest and greatest system features with no fears of version lock or software downtime when upgrading. So now that you've heard about Geonexus, we'll dive right into the demonstration.
Hi, everyone. My name is Umesh Menon, and I lead the product group at Geonexus. Excited to be here to be part of this discussion about the utility network. So how can Geonexus help support this move to the utility network? It really revolves around this concept of enabling an iterative approach to migrating your integrations to the utility network. I'm going to try to visualize this for you. So in most cases, the current state looks something like you're seeing on the screen, with your geometric network integrated to various systems. A phase one approach could be to synchronize your geometric network to your utility network. This allows your GIS editors to focus on the transition at their own pace to the utility network to work out the workflows and design and data elements. Once you're comfortable and ready to start working from the utility network, this data can be synchronized back into the geometric network to continue to feed to the other integrations, and vice versa, receive that data back from those systems into the utility network via the geometric network. A phase two and onward approach would be when you begin to migrate your integrations over to be connected to the utility network. With this approach, you can look at implementing the new integrations one at a time and prioritize those interfaces that are most critical to move. Additionally, since the Geonexus Integration Platform is utility network ready, as well as includes a host of other connectors, it could be leveraged to integrate those other systems as well. So this is the part of the demonstration, part of the section where I go through a demonstration. And I plan to show a data flow from Geonexus Integration Platform between the geometric network and the utility network. The first scenario I'll be walking through is creating new poles in my geometric network and having the Geonexus Integration Platform create them in the utility network. In the second scenario, I'll modify the pole record in the utility network and have the Geonexus Integration Platform apply those updates into the geometric network. All right, perfect. So let me share my screen now, and I'm going to start here in my geometric network. And here I have 3 pole features already created in my geometric network under my support structure layer. And I have a few specific attributes that I have mapped. I have comments, diameter, material, height. So I have a few things I have mapped to synchronize over to the utility network. And you can see that under facility ID, this is the link that I'm using to my utility network. And the 3 poles I'm using start with ZZ, just so they're easily identifiable when we look at them in the utility network. So as I described previously, I have different integrations that are populating data into my GN. And the idea is that we can synchronize whatever data elements are required to be in the utility network from the geometric network. Let's go take a look at my utility network now. So I'm currently looking at my structure junction table, and I'm just going to, asset ID is going to be my link here. I'm just going to sort ascending, descending, just show that those ZZ records are not there within my structure junction table at this time. So just kind of setting the stage of the demo. So now let me go into my Geonexus Integration Platform application. So what you're looking at is the GIP user interface. So this is where you execute the synchronizations. You can view reports from the synchronizations, and you can configure them as well, right? So you kind of do everything here. I'm going to execute the synchronization process for the first scenario, and we do that from this console screen. So that's where we do that. So I'm going to go ahead and click the Start Synchronizer. And there's 2 methods of synchronization. Well, there's 2 ways you can run the synchronization process. One is manually, like we're doing now. And the second way is to execute through scheduled tasks. So you can schedule the syncs to run in whatever frequency. A lot of our customers will do like a daily, nightly run of the synchronization. We also offer 2 methods of synchronization. One is near real time, which is based on delta changes in the system. And then also there's a full compare, which is more of a batch synchronization. So a couple different flavors to how we can run. I'm running this in near real time just so we can see the changes go through pretty quickly. So I've got this running now. I'm going to switch back over now to my utility network, and I'm just going to refresh the data. I've got everything synced to a specific version in the utility network called demo version 08. So to refresh the data, I'm just going to change the version back to default, just change it back to that version. And let me just sort. And you can see those ZZ records are now inserted in my table here. If I just kind of scroll over a bit, some of the things that I had in my GN, the height, diameter, and then some notes here as well, all synced over to the utility network for my synchronization. Now I'm just going to do an update here to sync back to the GN just to show that, doing an update to a record and then syncing that back into my geometric network. So I've made that update on that one record. I'm going to save that. Okay, so that's saved. And I've done that on that ZZ300 record. So now I'm going to switch over to my geometric network and need to refresh this, but this is that ZZ300 record here. I'm just going to start editing, and we should see that the comment got updated, sync back to the GN. So just kind of showing the flow, right? The scenario one of syncing into creating those records into your utility network, and then making an update. An editor might make an update on utility network, seeing that back go to the GN, which potentially could flow back into your other integrations if that's something you have integrated together. So now let's just go back into GIP, short for Geonexus Integration Platform. Let me go into my reports. And just to show the couple of reports that ran. So this is the synchronization report. So you get sort of the same view as the console, which gives you some stats on what happened during that run. And then you also have these bookmarks or shortcuts to different sections. So you can see things like errors, orphans. I'm just going to jump down to the creates. So these are 3 creates that occurred. So it tells you what is your kind of mappings that you use between your source and your GN, your target and your UN, and then what values actually populated for each of these things. So these are the 3 records that got created in. And then just let's look at the other report here quickly. And this was the update that I did in my UN to sync back over to my GN. I'll just go to the update section, and you can see sort of similar information, but the difference in the updates is we show what was the old value for that record and what's the new value here. So you get a lot of great transparency here through these reports. So if you're running these between your GN and UN, you can kind of validate, how are things flowing back and forth? Are they going in the right places? And then if there are errors you're getting through services or a geodatabase, when you're connected to your GN, you'll see those things come through, and then you can react to those and then resolve those issues. So that kind of wraps up the demo piece, just kind of showing you the different scenarios. And the demo focus today mostly on the actual execution of the synchronization and reporting. But if you're interested in learning more about the configuration side or have other questions on just GN-UN synchronization, please reach out to our team. We'll be happy to talk to you about that. Thank you.
All right, now we'll open it up for question now. As a reminder, I've brought in Josh Swenson to help me answer some of your questions. But while I give you time to type in your questions, I just want to mention that we're going to be hosting these monthly and have been hosting these monthly. And they're really just to dive into some of the specific use cases we hear requested. So if you have any recommended topics or connectors or specific things that you want to see demonstrated, please feel free to either type them in the chat, or there will be a survey after the demo asking for your recommendations there. So with that, I will turn it over to Josh for questions. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, Katie. Yeah, just to reiterate what Katie said there about kind of the objective of this meeting, I see some questions rolling, some Q&A portion of the interface. Our goal really when we started this idea of demos is to, give folks who are making decisions about integrations the ability to, kind of do that on their own time, right? Rather than having to, schedule a meeting for a demo or, interact with our sales team if that's not where you're at this point in your journey or your knowledge gathering. Is really to set up a place where, with limited friction, you can kind of see how different parts of the platform works. And it's been wildly successful in meeting that objective. But I think the other piece that we found within this demo kind of format is that we have a lot of customers, current customers, existing customers that join just to grow their knowledge of the platform, which we think is fantastic. And so, to Katie's point about reaching out, whether you're someone that is just beginning your journey to kind of figuring out the proper integration approach, and so you're a prospect in that vein, if you will, or if you're searching for some specific question to be answered within your kind of knowledge gathering journey, that's fantastic. And if you're an existing customer and you have something specific that you'd like to learn or focus on, let us know, because what we found is that the questions that we're trying to answer through these demos really draw a broad audience. And so, that's fantastic. So we're happy to kind of field your initial, field your request for knowledge gathering and provide that form of one of these things. So that's great. All right, a couple of questions that are coming in here. Can Geonexus be used as a migration tool? This is something that we get a lot in these GN UN projects. And our answer is somewhat complex in terms of, maybe I'll start with this. Has Geonexus been used as a migration tool? The answer is yes. What we have found, though, specific to UN projects is, with water projects, the data schema is a lot less complex than when you're working with kind of gas or electric UN projects. And so that's where we found the most success in using it as a migration tool. And that's where we've used it. In terms of the gas and electric, the answers are really depends. Depends on, the complexity of the data schema that you're moving to. And so really, if you're to that point and trying to decide whether you need this as a migration tool, we're happy to have a conversation. But in all honesty, sometimes the best answer is that, we point you in another direction in terms of the migration tool for your use case. If it's something that's super complex, we found that there are other migration tools that are out there that are focused specifically on migration that would be more helpful. And we look at it as, we look at that initial data load and that initial migration, more as kind of, a cross-country move, if you can follow the analogy, versus the synchronization portion of things. It's really, kind of keeping everything organized in your house, right? And so sometimes that kind of big bulk data load is better handled by a different tool. So great question there. We appreciate that. So there's also a question about supporting, the data model for a gas utility, right? And we can dig into that a little bit more. I mean, we have done some of those. It's somewhat of the same answer, but we need to understand your specific use case and how we can help out there. So happy to dig in. Emmett, I think you're the one that asked the question there. We'll follow up with you via email and maybe get some more specifics about your platform and the way that your data is structured, and give you a little bit deeper answer in terms of how we can support your specific use case. Just reading through some of these again. There's a question about whether Geonexus can support branch versioning. Very short answer here is yes. So thanks for that question. We can definitely support branch versioning there. So if there's further information that's needed there, we don't have a clearer name there, but we'll send some emails out once we dig into kind of who the users are, and we can help to answer that question a little bit deeper. Yeah, Jill has a question about the iterative approach recommended for companies with no direct third-party integrations. The only integration will be using map services through Esri. I'll have to get some more detail there, Jill. I don't understand the question. If you want to load a little bit more information into the Q&A, I could get that. And so, if your question is about not having integrations and just getting something set up at this point, yeah, I mean, that's how things are used. I think there's a couple of different ways that we found that UN projects, the integration UN projects are being approached specific to Geonexus, right? So a lot of times what's happening, and maybe this helps answer the question, a lot of times what we're seeing in these projects is there's a big move to the UN. There's a project to move to the UN. And, kind of two buckets of things that come up is one, there's a bunch of integrations that have been built way in the past. And, the team is trying to figure out, well, how am I gonna copy the integrations that are currently in, kind of in play as I'm in the GN. Right? What am I going to do to make sure that those existing integrations hold? And they don't want to go and rebuild all of them. They understand that they're going to break when they move to the UN. A lot of times, the expertise is not there to support the new UN functionality that'll need to be supported, and so that's where they come to us. The other thing is, the actual move to the UN, and we've talked about this if you've been on these webinars before, right? There's, it's kind of a 2 to 2.5 year project that's there to move to the UN, and there's some legacy applications that are existing that need to stay up and running as you move over to the UN. And so that's a big place that Geonexus is playing a role is kind of keeping that GN and that UN synchronized. So the applications that are still working on the GN and don't yet have a time frame to move over to the UN for whatever reason, we can keep both of those systems in place so the data is unified regardless of the time frame of your move or what's still being supported by the GN there. So hopefully that helps answer the question there. There's a question about how much data can be moved at once. That's also specific to your use case. So Sam, great question. We can share some of the stats with you, Sam, through email about, how much data we see moving on a regular basis. I think one of the things up front we've seen is that the initial data load, when you want to make that kind of first synchronization, that it's a little bit slower than kind of the day-to-day run. So I'll give you that. We can run up to, 500,000 record at a certain point in time. But the real answer is what our team has kind of worked with customers on is helping to understand what's critical data and what's not so critical data, right? And what I mean by that is we have several different options that are built into the platform that really help you segment out the data so that you can optimize how the data is running. So some of what that looks like is, there's some advanced functionality where we can split data into different projects and run it parallel to optimize data, kind of the data runtime or the data synchronization runtime. Some of it is that we'll segment data to where some data needs to be updated on a nightly basis, maybe more frequently than that. And other data they don't need updated except for on a monthly basis, right? And so, so that's a place where we help organizations optimize. And then lastly, what I put in there is some of the near real-time functionality that we have, right? We've created some new functionality over the last year that really helps to give another option for that super critical data where it's optimized or it's running and synchronizing in near real time. And then again, other data doesn't need to be updated like that. So there's all types of options for optimizing that. But as we get into the synchronization, the run times are, don't seem to be an issue at all for the organizations that are kind of running on a day-to-day basis there. But one of the modes we've moved into, again, just to reiterate, is really helping organizations figure out what data is critical and then setting up and configuring the platform and the synchronization runs to optimize, as highly as we can based on that critical data, non-critical data structure. So hopefully that helps to answer the question. I think Sam was the name there. Just looking at some of the other ones. Yeah, so Michael, you have a question for is there a timeline for when? I think it's a utility network specific question, versus our support. And so maybe I'll answer it from our specific view rather than Esri's, and hopefully this gives you what you need. But Geonexus at this point supports kind of all the different flavors of Esri. Right? We've, I think Katie pointed out earlier, we're an Esri Silver partner. We work very closely with Esri. And one of the true benefits of our platform is that, your team is not managing the integration. And what we see a lot is somebody has an integration, they're deciding, whether they want to build this or buy Geonexus to kind of manage integrations. We see sometimes where there are organizations that have an integration in place and they're trying to understand how they're going to support that integration as they move to the UN. We've even seen sometimes where there's an organization that has an integration that is running in parallel to the Geonexus tool, and they're getting to a certain point where they're going to upgrade a system or move to the utility network, as is specific to this conversation. And they're trying to decide which one is the best path forward. And the real thing that Geonexus offers there is the fact that, we're a fully supported platform. We have a full team that is keeping up with what's happening with Esri, what's happening with Maximo, what's happening with SAP or the Oracle products that we support, right? And our team is really keeping up with the advancement of that integration even before you need it. So if your question is specific to kind of what flavor of Esri do we support the UN on, it's all of it, right? That's kind of the, one of the biggest values of our platform is keeping up with these systems so that you can move when you're ready to move, and we're already there from an integration perspective. So hopefully that helps to answer the question. I think it's Michael that asked that. Then there's a question about what is needed to move from the GN to the UN so that it doesn't feel like we would need a phase 2, 3, and 4. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a longer answer. We can follow up in email. Again, some of the way that we look at this is what the implementation is to support the integrations versus the full project to move from the GN to the UN. I will state this because we've had a lot of success of late, especially with this move, is that this idea of GN to UN is a larger project, right? One of the things that Katie touched on in the, in one of the first slides there is, it's kind of the different steps. I wouldn't call them the different phases, but the different steps that are there to help you move. And we're really focused on kind of managing those integrations and keeping the different systems aligned. And so in terms of the steps that are needed to move, we can follow up with that on email just because we're at time here and it's a longer discussion. So really good questions. Again, Katie does a great job of following up here from an email perspective. And so I'll leave that to her to follow up with different questions here. And with that, Katie, because we're at time, I'll turn it back over to you for any closing thoughts.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your help, Josh, and great discussion today. And thanks everyone for your questions. I know we're right at time, so here's our information. If you have any additional questions and you want to reach out to one of us individually, again, there will be a survey afterward that you can type your questions in. And then if you're a current customer of Geonexus, you can also feel free to reach out to Lindsay. I've included her information as well. We'll hope everyone has a great day, and we will see you next month to cover the platform's near real-time integration functionality, highlighting an integration between Maximo and GIS. Thanks, everyone. Have a great remainder of your day.